married women in their first year of marriage they're just like, wait, this is not what I expected, or like, did I make the wrong decision?
It comes up. I think that the first year is such a year of growth and adjustment. It's not even growth. It's always growth, but it's adjustment. And I think it's stepping back and saying, okay, we're both getting to know each other.
Yeah.
And so rather getting in the throes of, is this right? Is this, and that's why working with a coach, confiding in a trusted friend, somebody who will give you objective advice.
Welcome to the Marriage Magnet podcast, where it's not just about attracting the one, it's about becoming the one. I'm your host, Nechama Phillips, and here we focus on growth, high standards, and creating an intentional life and love through self-development. Navigate your dating journey with clarity and confidence, because marriage is not just a box you check off, it's your life. Welcome back to another episode of the Marriage Magnet podcast, and I'm so excited to have Beth Moscovic here with me. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Nechama.
Of course. Crazy story of how this came to be, which we just have to share, is so I've been following you for probably a couple of years now. I love your content, like your reels. I'm always like nodding along. I'm like, yes, thank you for calling me out. I've been following for a while. And then it was recently, right, a few months ago maybe, that I reached out and I was like, we should do something together, maybe an Instagram Live or like be on my podcast or something. And then what was it, Thursday? I was like tapping through, as we all do, mindlessly scrolling on Instagram. And I see that you were at a restaurant here.
Yes.
And I didn't even see that it was your story. I'm just like tapping through and I see the actual restaurant tagged and I'm like, LV, Las Vegas. I'm like, oh, someone's in Las Vegas. I look up on the top left to see whose profile it is, and it was you. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And I messaged you like, oh my gosh, you're here.
Exciting moment. I was like, yay,
and
that's
then
so nice.
Yeah, I was like, this is so cool, because you're the first guest, like besides my husband, but you're the first guest like in studio, because usually I'm like looking at the screen there on Zoom. And
wow.
You're here live.
I'm honored.
Yeah,
That's
you're here
cool.
live. It's so fun. It's so much more fun to like have someone in the room. So yeah, I guess first things first, just tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and just, share your wisdom with everyone.
Okay, so I'm Beth. I'm a wife and mom of 6 beautiful children. My background, it's like life experience that really gets you where that's the true education is your life. But my background is in education. I studied to be a teacher. I actually majored in Jewish studies and then worked mostly in special needs. So I was overseeing programs for children with learning disabilities, early intervention programs, doing a lot of coaching women, coaching moms, coaching teachers, training teachers. And
not officially or as a byproduct of in that job?
This was part of my role as an administrator in Jewish day school. And I have a lot of gratitude to the school I worked at, because I gained a lot of experience, a lot of opportunity for my own professional development through that job. And then I think in the last years of that job, it was COVID when I stopped working there. Last few years, I was itching to go on my own. It was just this creative aspect. Part of me had a need to, come out, and it couldn't in the school. Schools are the way they are. Yeah. And I had a baby in 2019. She's 5 years old, my daughter Aliyah. And then everything kind of unfolded from there.
So you had the baby and then it was COVID.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So then you were like, oh, I anyway have a little baby. Life is forever changed anyway in terms of work. So that's the perfect time for me to like start doing my own thing.
It kind of materialized that way. It was a little bit like I was on a maternity leave. I was supposed to go back to work.
Right.
And then just different events unfolded that really set the stage for, okay, it's time to go on your own. And, with 5 kids at home on Zoom in school.
Yeah. Oh, my gosh.
And trying to develop my career, and then social media really taking off. So really putting a lot of input into my Instagram page. And trainings, coaching trainings, marriage and intimacy, mikveh educator.
You do kallah classes also, am I right? Okay, fine. Yeah, so she's an incredible marriage coach and kallah teacher and all things marriage, basically, right? That's what you focus on?
Yeah, a lot of it is just relationships. So I focus on relationship with self, relationship as a couple. Yeah. And they're very much intertwined. I have a big passion for health and wellness. I try to very much,
Same, we're very similar. We're vibing. Yeah.
Yes, totally.
Amazing. That's awesome. Okay, so something I find fascinating, I plan to maybe go into a little bit of the marriage aspect at some point, but right now I'm doing strictly like coaching for single women who are dating for marriage, and I absolutely love it. There's a part of me itching to like also share the after the chuppah part of it,
Right.
because I think there's so much to touch on there. But I'm curious from your perspective and from your experience working with married women, and maybe even kallahs, like what do you wish people knew earlier, or what do you think like would have been helpful looking at married women, and maybe they're struggling now with something, whatever it is, like what are you like, oh my gosh, if only you focused, obviously not in a judgmental way, but like, you know, what should women know before they get married that sometimes you see crop up at almost like a pattern, like, oh, married women struggling with this. If they would have taken care of that before, things would have been a lot better.
I think a lot of it, again, is very self-related. I think that we go into it and it's marriage. So, of course, it should be about the two of you. But the two of you, you're bringing two different, you know, in Torah it says two halves of one soul. It's two very different halves. As much as you click and you mesh and there's a lot of fire and passion and excitement early on in the relationship, you know, it could be before the chuppah. Maybe there isn't that much, but I think there's also a tolerance for one another and an acceptance. And then we get married and we live together and it's different. So I think a big part of it that if I were to go back, and what I do tell women that I work with today is understanding that you're with the other half of yourself, but it's the other different half of yourself. So it's normal that you will go through these, I guess we can call them growing pains, and moments where you're going to feel like, I'm not sure about this. This is icky. This bothers me. It's bringing up a lot of what maybe we haven't healed from when we were younger. So I think there's a big part of that I would go back to. I think as women are, we're givers. We were created, God created us that way as compassionate. I mean, a woman can carry a baby and nurture it and grow it within herself and then give birth to this baby and continue to give and give to her husband. But we end up getting a lot of significance from giving, but we could deplete ourselves that way. And then, you know, a lot of the women that I coach, these are things I see. The women feel depleted, women feel underappreciated.
Overgiving, underappreciated.
And I think it's not to wait for somebody else to bring you happiness. Of course, your husband should bring you happiness, but a lot comes from within ourselves. And when we could really, you know, nurture ourselves in different ways, whether it's in our purpose, something that we're passionate about, whether it's, for me, it's a lot through health and fitness. You know, when you feel physically strong in your body, it translates to mental, emotional strength.
We both worked out this morning, I saw.
Go you, that's awesome. I'm on a different time zone, so when I work out.
I was wondering, I'm like, how is she up this early, especially because I feel like you probably were out late, like you're on vacation here.
Right, so we were kind of out late, but it's like my version of late. It's not really everybody's version, maybe like 11:30, but I need sleep. And I take a class, so I do a class on Zoom.
Okay, so there was a time.
Yeah, there was a time I had to be. So it's 9:30 Eastern time, which is 6:30 a.m.
Wow.
Vegas time.
Yeah. Oh my gosh,
it works
that's
out.
a lot.
So I think that's a big part of it. When you develop those aspects of yourself, when you invest in them, when you prioritize them, when you make time for them, the message you're telling yourself is, I'm important. I'm worthy of care. And so is everybody else in your life. But for you to be able to care for them, it's so important to go back to that.
And you're sending that message as well to your husband and to the people around you, where it's like, I value myself, I appreciate myself, and then whatever they do or say is like a byproduct of that, or it's like a bonus where it's like their appreciation is like, oh, that's really nice. I appreciate me anyway, but like, sure, it feels like an added, it feels nice, but it doesn't feel necessary, like you're thirsting for it and like you can't survive without it. Because I think that's probably the point where it's like women get to this point, it sounds like from what you're saying, where they're like, they feel so depleted because they forgot to recognize what they're doing. They forgot to recognize themselves, prioritize themselves. And so when you forget to do it for yourself, it's very easy, not that it's an excuse, but it's very easy for everyone else to fall into a certain rhythm that complements what you feel about yourself. And so the same way is true with the opposite. If you could show, I prioritize myself, I value myself, your life starts to get set up to reflect that back to you.
Yeah, it's exactly that. It's reflected back to you. So what you give out will be reflected back to you. So if your husband and your children see that you value your body, you care for your body, you care for your well-being, you know the importance of resting, everything that encompasses caring for ourselves, then they value that too.
Yeah.
It just becomes the life that you live together.
Yeah.
So I think that's, that's what I would say would be my number one.
So if we had to distill that down to a message to single women, it would be take care of yourself better. How would you frame that of like, this is what you can do to prevent this?
So I think it's either take care of yourself better if right now, so like you, I also work with single women, and the one thing I say to them is some women don't know how. They don't know what it means to care for themselves. What can I do? What are my interests?
Right.
What are my likes? What are my
getting
dislikes?
to know yourself.
Right. So it starts with in some cases it starts with getting to know yourself, and then taking the time to explore those things.
Yeah.
And then once you explore them, you get to know them, they become part of you and they become part of your life. So you're going to get married, those will already be things that are part of your life. And for the ones that are already doing it, it's not a given that because you do it pre-marriage that you're going to continue to keep that as something high on your priority list. So don't let that drop to the bottom of the list.
Yeah.
Continue to make time for it. I know you're a mom with a baby, and when you have young children, I don't have children that age right now. They're older. It's easy. We want to give so much to grow this beautiful life. But they will grow also through what we input in ourselves.
For sure. It's hard sometimes to see the importance of like saying like, okay, let me get a babysitter and let me go do something that's meaningful to me to fill my cup. Because it's like, no, like I don't want to drop her off at the gym daycare, for example. I struggle with that. I'm like, no, she doesn't love it. And like, meanwhile, it's like if she's safe for an hour and she's playing with toys and people are watching her, like she's fine and I can go to the gym. Like there's no, but it's hard to make those decisions, especially when you have really young kids. But like, I totally see the value in pushing myself to do that, because I think that if we don't do that, I send a message to myself that I'm not valuable or I'm not worthy of being taken care of. And I send a message also to my family. I'll probably be a little more resentful, a little bit more snappy, a little bit more like, why are you holding me back from going to the gym? You know, like those feelings that express themselves even if we don't realize it. So it's so necessary for the health of everyone to make these decisions.
And the truth is nobody's holding you back. And so it's like they're not going to hold you back, and they're also not going to tell you, you know.
Right.
Nobody's going to
say, here, Mama, go to the gym.
Yeah,
Like,
it's rare. Maybe some husbands will do that. I always compare it to like when you're cooking for a holiday. You need to stop yourself before you become overly exhausted. Nobody's going to say, stop. You're at that moment. Internally, you have to
learn your own limits and your own. Exactly, for sure. It's getting to know yourself. I think it's so important because I also find, and tell me if this is something that you find, but like women who come to me who are already married, and you know, we do one-on-one coaching, and they are married to a great guy, they have a baby, like life is objectively good, but they are miserable.
Right.
Like inside, they're miserable because they're picking fights for no reason. They're like, everything is hard. Like they're finding, it's like the self stuff inside that if we don't take care of, they will express themselves later, even when your circumstances are perfect. So I'm always telling my single women, like the most important thing you could do is you now, like self-awareness, self-acceptance, gain clarity on who you are, what you need, what you're looking for. Refine your intuition, like find your purpose and identity outside of marital status, all of these things, because if we don't do that and we just think marriage is going to like solve the problem, it's like marriage is not going to solve our emotional problems. It's not going to solve it's not the end all be all. And if we treat it that way, then when it comes, we're sometimes shocked that like this didn't actually cure my problems. I'm still like, I have everything I want. Why do I still feel so terrible? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
do you come across that?
I do. And sometimes I'll work with new moms, and they're just what you're describing. They're wondering, why do they feel so bitter? Why do they feel so resentful? Their husbands are so nice. They're trying. They want to help. They offer, but yet they still feel, you know, and it's normal. You're going to, the first person that you're going to kind of unleash this on or feel like you want to is going to be the closest person in your life.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's simple things. So I'll ask them, did you make yourself breakfast? So you have a little baby at home. You wake up, you have a routine in your mind about what you have to do for your baby. But do you take the time to eat a nourishing breakfast yourself? And of course, it's the point of the food, but it's also the point of, I paused and I noticed myself. I paid attention to my needs, and sometimes just adding in one. I wouldn't even call it a ritual. It's really just a basic need.
Basic routines.
Yeah, it could shift things, and you realize, wow, I feel so much better.
Yeah.
So I think, I do come across it, absolutely.
Yeah. It's heartbreaking because there's a part of me that just feels like I definitely had moments of these throughout my marriage, like once I got married and once I had a baby also. So I definitely relate. But it's heartbreaking because we really sometimes outsource our power to things like this, to circumstances that are really beautiful and wonderful. We want to get married. We want to have a family. But the way that we're putting certain, like, we're outsourcing the power to those circumstances and not to who we are and to ourselves. And when we constantly, I think the almost like the cure for everything is realizing it's up to you, which sounds a little bit like annoying, but it's like if you realize that like it all comes down to you, it all comes down to like how you're gonna become the person that you want to be. So every circumstance, whether it's not good circumstances or it's amazing, you realize that you're the same you within it. You're the one that has to do the work and do that self, like, or else you can have every blessing in the world and still, unfortunately, not enjoy it, like not be able to appreciate
feel
it.
the void.
Yeah.
Feel like there's something missing, but not really knowing what it is that's missing.
Yeah.
I think it's a process over time. I think it's so much of, and that I think is what scares, someone can scare women away. Like, I don't even know where to start.
Yeah.
I don't know what to do. And everything is planting seeds. They don't realize that it's just like small input. Start some of the things that have developed in my life, or doors that opened up and things that changed, and my own mindset that shifted just came from small things that I did. It wasn't like one big thing necessarily.
Yeah, it builds over time and it compounds over time.
Yes.
So like if you work on yourself, that's why I think it's so incredibly important working on yourself when you're single. Because like, I mean, looking back, I got married when I did for a reason. I got married at 27, and the years of like relationships and this and like all the self-work that I was able to do, which again, I'm not saying it's ideal and that you shouldn't get married earlier, but like, I think it really just kept building and compounding over time, that now when something happens in my life, it's like, thank God I had that, and that, so that here I am able to face this in a totally different way than I would have been able to if not for the lessons and stuff that I went through.
It's amazing.
So question for you.
Okay.
When we are already married and we want to foster a healthy dynamic and healthy communication, I know for myself there have been times, maybe hormonally I wasn't doing well, maybe just emotionally things were going on, but like I tried to pick a fight with my husband, maybe not even consciously, but just, you know, like, or I just felt like maybe repeating certain patterns of the past, maybe that I've had with other people in my life, maybe role models of ours, like, what would you say are the core things, like some key tips to keep in mind to foster healthy communication in marriage once you're already married? And I would say specifically in that first couple of years when, I don't know, at least for me, I felt like every argument was like the end of the world in the beginning. And now it's like, okay, whatever, we disagree, fine, move on. But when you're newly married, like it's really hard to keep that like even keel and to put in the appropriate, I guess, like effort to keep a healthy communication. What are your thoughts around that?
I think I always talk about the pause and ask yourself. I think there's some great self-talk that you can use. Self-talk is so powerful. How important is this right now? How much will this matter? I don't know, even in 10 minutes from now.
A week from now.
From now, tomorrow. There's a lot about sleeping on it. You know, you can...
Yeah. Oh, what's your opinion on that? On like going to bed angry, the classic stuff.
So I think like it's kind of like I remember at work when someone would send me an email. I'm like, I need to answer that right now, and I need to tell them exactly what I think. And then I start to learn to pause and look at it the next day. Yeah. So sometimes just space from a situation. So that's where that going to bed angry thing. Yeah. I think you can, you may be able to say I love you, you may not be able to. We're human. It's normal. But knowing that, having I think an agreement in advance when we do get into these moments, even if one of us needs time space from it. We both need space from it. It doesn't mean we don't love each other. So I think it's like setting some rules in
ahead
advance.
Of time when you're not in the heat of the moment.
Exactly. Because in the heat of the moment, you're not in your logical brain anymore.
Exactly.
So you set those rules, and it's, we know we love each other. We know it's normal to argue.
Yeah.
We also have rules about how we argue so that it doesn't get out of hand. Some people can anger just takes over more strongly than others. And
what are some of those rules, if you wouldn't mind sharing? Because I'm thinking, like, when you're in an argument, because naturally you will argue. So, like, I guess what are some ways to do it in a healthy way that you feel like you're actually, like, it's not leaning towards toxic? Because I know especially if somebody struggles with maybe they had a toxic parent relationship that they've witnessed, or they've had other relationships in the past that have been very heated.
Volatile.
Yeah, volatile is the right word. Just what, like, how do, like, and they've worked on themselves, they've grown, they're now in a marriage, but things are not perfect, and it's very easy to slip back into, like, old patterns. So I guess what does it look like to argue in a healthy way? So
like, I'll have couples who will come to me with these issues. So sometimes I'll coach a woman, and then together we do some coaching with a couple, and I'll have them set the rules themselves. Like, what to you warrants, disrespect? What to you, the word's not warrant, but is considered disrespectful?
Yeah.
What to you feels unsafe when it comes to communication? Yeah. When it comes to an argument?
I think for a woman, that's a really important question.
That is. And so that they can each come up with, and I help them and I prompt them. And some of the things that come out, definitely a lot is about our voice. And that, I think, could come from childhood, where we heard voices that were raised, or we never heard voices that were raised. So,
and then you didn't know what to expect.
Right. So it's like, either it triggers you because you had your own moments where you witnessed parents who were arguing loudly, raising their voices. So having a rule that, we each pay attention and notice where our voice is going, and that we ensure that we're not yelling at one another, screaming, shrieking, all those things. Definitely words. We know our words are so powerful, and hurtful and damaging.
Yeah.
I think I try to really impart to them, not from a place of trying to scare them, but the truth is that you can't take back what you said. Yeah. There's a place of repair, but let's beforehand have some preventative measures.
Yeah.
That some things, whether they're insulting, whether they're criticizing, where they're picking at a weakness, we know each other so well.
Once you expose your vulnerabilities, I think this is what's so scary for people, is that now this person holds them in their hands and can use them against you, which hopefully won't. But there's a certain fear, and in arguments, it's definitely the most, like, prevalent time for these things to come out, where it's like, well, you didn't, like.
Yeah, and not bringing up the past. Generalizations, statements that generalize, you always do such and such, you never do such and such, and because it really moves us away from any potential for solution. Yeah. So I think those would be, like, really, important ones in, I think, a normal range of an argument. Obviously, we're not talking about in, abusive situations, but a normal range.
Normal disagreement, normal couple fighting, like, having a hard time, not anything further than that, for sure. And if it is, then they need to seek help in other forums. That everyone needs help with these kinds of things, like, anyway. And I think having a coach or a mentor or a rabbi or someone that you respect, that you can ask these questions to, that you can bring certain arguments. I know I would not manage without having that for myself in my marriage.
Absolutely.
So important. Another thing that came to mind as you were saying that, like, for ensuring you have a healthy fight, so to speak, is trying at some point during the argument to, like, whether it's verbally or you're just kind of, like, signaling or implying that it's you guys against the problem, and that it's not you two against each other, because sometimes you really get into it and you're like, well, and you feel this, like, self-righteousness, and you forget, sometimes I forget, like, that we're in this together, and that it's about us as a team against the thing that we're struggling with, or the thing that we're disagreeing about. And sometimes it really doesn't feel like that. And so I think that there's a certain, like, if we can share that message just in some kind of way to our spouse, and just be like, it's like, we'll figure this out, or sometimes I feel like I can say that, where that's like a we, like we're doing this together, and just like signaling basically that you're on the same team, because I think that already like de-escalates.
Yes, I think it's
the
very
argument.
powerful. Yeah.
Yeah.
We feel like, because then it feels like you're right, one against the other, and it really isn't that. We're not here to be against each other, but we forget that in the moment.
Yeah.
Because our ego steps in, and once your ego steps in, so it's a lot of, I think, the pre-work or the all the time work. I wouldn't even say it's pre-work. It's like a constant life work. It's really quiet the ego, tame the ego.
Oh, for sure.
And it's a lot about stepping into like humility. I don't know everything. What can I learn from him? What what can Right,
Maybe
about
this
him.
is showing, right? Like he's so upset about something. Sometimes I've learned about my husband. I'm like, oh, like I never realized that you cared about this so much. Like this is a newsflash.
That's a great
right?
question. Yeah, or a great, statement, or I never realized that.
Yeah.
And I think it's also in the times where you're not in the argument, spending those times having those discussions, getting to know each other better. Some of these discussions, they're not like some kind of set discussion time where we have them.
Right. It's like then just life happens and you wish you would have had the discussion before.
Right. But sometimes it could be like, I know my husband and I have had these discussions after having like a Friday night dinner, Shabbat meal, and we had extended family over, and we're kind of processing the interactions that happened at the table. And then it opens up a discussion. Well, when I was a child, such and such went on, and it was hard for me.
Yeah.
And so the more you get to know each other, and like you said before, opening up in vulnerable ways, you can have more compassion. So I think a big part of being able to manage or in conflict is developing in the day-to-day compassion for the other person.
Yeah,
so the more we can be compassionate and feel for them. But in regular situations, you see your husband go to work for long hours. I sometimes I'll tell women, and I've posted on my Instagram, imagine yourself, you're not in his shoes, but imagine each other in the other one's shoes. So if it's you imagine your husband and his day, like I hear him on the phone, and there's people coming into his office and he's trying to manage, all kinds of things, and he's coming home after a day like that.
Yeah.
Or, you being at home and you're caring for your baby, caring for your kids. I have, thank God, 6 kids. They're all asking different things of me, different times.
Yeah, right.
So it's different things in life can help you develop compassion for your partner.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is a kind of a safety net. It's part of the safety net for when you do have an argument.
For sure. Because I think that, and I've, just to be honest, we've had moments in our marriage where I feel like we forgot to be compassionate, you know, or we got too caught up in the like, well, this is not right. Well, this is what you should be doing, or this is like, or I can't believe like you're like this, or you're not doing this, or you're. And it's like that's the problem. Where I love that you're bringing this up. It's like if you remembering to have compassion, or like fostering the emotional closeness to keep compassion at the top is so important, because in those moments of argument, instead of like being defensive and looking for what they did wrong and looking for like what you're not happy about, it's like you can look at it through the lens of reminding myself that my care for you comes first. Right. We can always talk about like whatever the technical stuff is we can talk about, but my care for you comes first. And sometimes I'm sure plenty of us are guilty of that, of just like not putting that at the forefront. And for that moment, you being right, or you getting what you want, or whatever it is, or you getting your way becomes the most important, and you forget that really having compassion for the person you love is most important.
Absolutely.
So another question we're talking a little bit about vulnerability. What would you say is something that could help women feel more safe to open up? And obviously this has to be with their spouse, but like a lot of women, I guess, when they're single and dating, come to me and tell me that they really struggle to be vulnerable on dates, and that's different in a sense. I think it also ties into marriage, because sometimes they think like, oh, when I get married, I'll just feel like I could be totally open, and that doesn't always happen. Like you actually have to do the work in yourself. It doesn't just like automatically happen. But within the safety of a healthy marriage that we're speaking about, right? It's like, how can we get ourselves to feel comfortable? Maybe we need to ask something of our spouse, like, can you say this, or can you do this, or like, this is the kind of environment I need fostered in order to be comfortable being myself. But I think a lot of women, once they get married and they see that it doesn't come automatically, struggle with being like, they want to be more open and expressive and vulnerable so that their husband can like be there for them in the way they want, but for some reason it still feels too scary, like they can't be
I get that
vulnerable.
I think that our Of course, we're talking in marriage, and I'm talking from personal experience as well. I think sometimes you need to practice it in other close relationships. So marriage is the intimate relationship, of course, but we have other, we can call them intimate relationships, whether it's with a sister, whether it's with a best friend, whether it's even, I wouldn't call that intimate, but with a coach, just practicing.
Emotionally intimate, emotionally close,
So practicing being vulnerable with others that you're comfortable with, and sometimes woman to woman, it's easier to
it's like a first step, because it probably will come a little bit more easy, more natural.
And so I think it's the practice. You get a lot of practice in communication and in opening yourself up in these close relationships. You just don't see it that way. You don't realize that that's what it is. So sometimes when you're a little bit more thoughtful about it, noticing, intentional, like, wow, where do I learn to be this way? How do I know how to be this way? Well, I have this person in my life that I interact with in this way all the time.
Yeah.
And of course it's, these people that are also like emotionally in tune. It's not just with anybody. You're doing this.
Obviously choose them wisely.
Yes, exactly.
A parent, your friends, a coach, a mentor, with someone where it's also practicing receiving, I think.
Yes.
Right? It's
absolutely.
like being able to open up vulnerably. And I know for me, when I talk to my coach, sometimes I have to remember, like, oh, she's coaching me. I'm not coaching right now. Just like turn off that part of me that wants to present anything in a nice way, that wants to say my feelings in a certain way, that wants to like come across like it's not so bad, right? Like I just need to like let myself go and be like, I am struggling. This is what's happening. Help me, right? Like, and really opening my heart to be like, it's okay to share what I'm actually feeling. No filter, no anything. And I'm going to let you guide me. I'm going to let your words penetrate me. I'm going to let myself receive your guidance, receive from you, which is very hard, especially when you're in a role. Maybe you relate to this also, of like you're usually like a mom, a coach, like someone who's giving over. Yeah. And you're not necessarily always the one like willing to sit back and receive.
Yeah, I think that's such an important aspect to really consider, especially when we're all in those roles in some way. You don't have to be a coach to be in that role.
Maybe at your job or
yeah, absolutely. And I think it's that preparatory part, what you talked about, like even saying it out loud when you're not with that person, when you're not with your coach. I want to be able to receive what you're going to share with me, what you're gonna, how you're gonna guide me. I think that is very powerful. I definitely believe that, and I think that again, it's a process over time. Like you said at the beginning, after you asked this question, asking for what you need, learning to ask from your husband for what you need.
And you can only ask if you know what you need. But
yes, and there's an art to that too. I think that we think we know what we need. Something flying in front of me. We think we know what we need, but do we really? Is that really
sometimes,
that thing?
I don't know if this happens to you, but sometimes my husband's like, okay, so what do you need from me right now? And I'm like,
yeah, absolutely.
I don't know. Don't ask me. But like, thanks for asking me, but don't ask me, because I actually have no idea in this moment what would be helpful.
Right. So that's again, like, we're always in action and we're always doing something. So we don't take the time. My husband talks about quieting the mind and trying to just notice, what is it I need? Sometimes it's as simple as, I need you next to me. I just need you in the room with me. I don't really need much more than that, but that is huge.
For sure. Sometimes when he asks that, actually, this is reminding me, I say, actually, this right now, actually, what you just asked, like, just asking, what do I need, is what I needed.
That's it.
And, like, that's it. There's nothing.
Because that itself creates that safety. Like you talked about before, a woman can feel unsafe. The safety comes from knowing that he's there with me. Yeah. And I think it's also there's a patience that's needed, because sometimes, and I encounter this with couples, a woman will ask her husband or share with her husband what she needs. I need this from you, and he doesn't necessarily know how to even give that. So it's a patience. It's
right. It's when you're vulnerable. Sometimes it doesn't always just like, here you go. This is exactly what I asked for. Thank you. It's like sometimes I'm vulnerable and then I'm kind of left hanging for a little bit, right? Like I'm just like. And he's like, okay, I would like to be that for you or do that for you. I just don't really know how. And then we have to actually figure it out. And I'm kind of left there like, I was just vulnerable and I'm not necessarily getting what I want or what I thought I would get right away. And it's also, having the patience and the grace, giving that grace to your spouse to be like, I'm willing to share what I need, be vulnerable, and sit in that like probably a little bit uncomfortable place of waiting for us to figure out how to be that for each other.
Yeah. And that's all part of the growth process. It's not something that happens, from 1 minute to the next.
Yeah.
There's an acceptance too.
For sure.
And I'm going to be okay with it. And it doesn't mean that it will never happen.
Right. Right. I think that's the part that people could go to where it's like giving up, like, oh, you're never going to be like, but really giving each other, I think, especially in the beginning of a marriage, right? That first year when it's like you're having arguments or this, or you try to resolve something and you realize that maybe the other person's not up to the point of helping you fully resolve it because maybe, like you're saying, like we don't have that skill yet, or you need to learn more about each other and you're not yet at the place where both of you can give each other what they need. You're still learning. So it's having that patience and that acceptance of like, okay, I'm going to still be happy in the moment. I'm still going to accept like where you are in the moment and also know that I would like you to get better at this, let's say, but to not like make that like, oh my gosh, you can't give me what I want, forget it, which I think a lot of times married women in their first year of marriage they're just like, wait, this is not what I expected, or like, did I make the wrong decision? I guess tell me a little bit more about that coming up, because I think women are scared to maybe voice that if they're married for like 6 months or a year and they have some kind of thoughts or doubts at any point where they're like, wait, did I marry the right person? Does that ever come up with you?
It comes up. I think that the first year is such a year of growth and adjustment. It's not even growth. It's always growth, but it's adjustment. And I think it's, stepping back and saying, okay, we're both getting to know each other.
Yeah.
And so rather getting in the throes of, is this right? Is this, and that's why working with a coach, confiding in a trusted friend, somebody who will give you objective advice. I think that's so important. I think that would be my advice, that you have somebody you can bounce this off of.
Yeah.
Of course, your intuition, trusting your own intuition, tapping into, like you said, you do with your clients, getting to know your own intuition, rather than it being like just from that feeling on the moment.
It's like a fear-based thing, right? You have this feeling like, oh my gosh, he's not giving me what I wanted, or he's not doing this, or I expected him to daven 3 times a day and now he's not, he's sleeping in, and what should I do, and is this what I really wanted, and we could like really start spiraling.
Yes.
And so it's so important, I think, having someone to talk these things through with, and even if hopefully you have that kind of relationships, I feel like with young married women, to talk to each other about like things that are not in a negative, like let's bash our husband's way, because I think that could go not healthy, but just in a like being real and being vulnerable and honest about like, this is hard for me. What do you struggle with this kind of conflict communication? I feel like a lot of people struggle to have like to speak about these things with their friends, and I think it would be just so much better for everyone.
Absolutely,
if everyone was just a little more honest.
Yeah, I think it's setting up the situation. So I run groups.
Yeah,
so I'll have groups where, and sometimes they kind of form, one will want to join and then she'll tell some friends, and they kind of know each other, or their acquaintances or their friends. They're going through similar things, but they don't realize they're going through similar things.
Yeah.
And we'll do a 5-session series. And just what you're describing, that's what goes on in these series. So someone will open up and share, and then, someone else jumps in, or sometimes I sit back and they're kind of sharing from their own experiences what has helped them. So there's the base of what I'm giving over to them. But at the same time, it's so rich because everybody's coming to it with their own experience.
These extra perspectives that are more than they bargained for. I totally feel that. I run groups like my program, the Marriage Magnet Method program for single women. And I do want to do married women as well in a different program. But basically, like they're in this setting that it's like I'm the coach, but then I'm seeing them be like, hey, you should this or like that. And like they're talking to each other and giving each other so much that I'm like, I can never take credit for this is all you. Like this is you. And just being in this environment and this dynamic gives you more than you bargained for, because you think you're coming and like, yeah, okay, I'll hear about someone else's, but like you don't realize how much coaching and support really that you gain from hearing other people just going through similar things that you're going through. It just makes you feel not alone, and it just makes you feel like oh, I'm not crazy. Like sometimes my clients are like, is this normal? Like, especially one-on-one clients because they're not in that group setting. Is this normal? Tell me if this is normal. And I'm like, you're normal. Like,
right.
all you want to hear is like, I'm normal. Like, I'm fine. I'm good.
And you just want to see, and I think that's what I try to, my Instagram page, I think reflects that a lot, is that we're all in the same boat.
Yeah.
We're all really going through the same things. They may look different, each one with our own version of it.
Yeah.
But what I'm going through, you're going through. And I think that's where the relief comes. So sometimes, like you said, you'll watch a video and you'll be like, oh, that put me in check in something. But it'll also, I'll get the feedback that, wow, that just made me realize it's not just me.
Right.
And I think that's so important. The whole power of conversation. So my husband, he's a follower of Rabbi Nachman of Breslev. And so the whole idea of conversations between friends, sichat chaverim, that you're, that there's so much power and there's so much richness and there's so much we can gain from just sitting around.
Having those conversations. It's just that it's hard sometimes to foster that environment, and also in friendships, right? To have that level of openness with friends is sometimes hard. But I think if you're the brave one, maybe you can start to create that space and that safe environment where your friends can share these things. Because like you're saying, these conversations are so powerful, and they're all right around you. Like they're your friends and your family and like people. And it's just, if you're just be a little more courageous, step out of your comfort zone,
takes courage.
Yeah, it's going to be so helpful. So share with us where everyone can find you, what you do exactly, like where they can look you up if they're looking for marriage coaching or working with you in any capacity.
Okay, so certainly you can find me at my Instagram page. My handle is my name, Beth Moscovic. You can find me there. I do one-on-one women's coaching. I run groups for women on different topics in marriage and intimacy and relationship and self. I coach single women. I am also a mikveh educator, so I teach women about Jewish family purity before marriage, so kallahs before their wedding. Amazing. Women who never learned about mikveh now want to learn about it.
You would be the best kallah teacher. Oh. There's so many, like, unfortunately not great stories of people's experiences, but sorry to interrupt you.
So I thank you. I love what I do, and I try to be real. I'm not a person that puts pressure in the sense that I get where people are coming from. Yeah. And I enjoy also the interaction. So those are like the main things. And I have other little projects going on that are exciting as well. And
so Instagram is the place to be if they want to see
reach out to me.
And they can just send you a DM.
Absolutely, DM me.
I'm going to link all that in the description and the show notes below. If you are single and dating for marriage and looking to join the program that I mentioned, the Marriage Magnet Method program, all the information will be in the description below. And for my married women, I am cooking up some resources for you. So if you want to jump on the wait list to be the first one to get notified when it launches, you can also just join that, and I'll link that below. So thank you for watching, and thank you, Beth, for joining. This was so lovely and so much fun, and I know it's going to be so valuable.
Thank you, Nechama. Thank you so much for having me.